Alright, so we're back with part 10, and as anticipated, Pluto has hit this 0 degree line. It got there for the second time, its second visit out of 3 on January 21st this year, 2024. It will now go forward a little bit into Aquarius, reaching about 1 degree on February the 22nd, and then around about May 3rd, after it's reached 2 degrees, it will begin to go retrograde, getting back into Capricorn to about 29 degrees or so, and then on October the 12th this year, it will go direct again, getting back to that 0 degree line round about November the 19th of this year, 2024. But it got to the 0 degree line on January the 21st this year, and well, let's see what occurred. Pluto is the planet of transformation and destruction. You can see more about the planet Pluto in Do You Believe in Magic, episode 3 on this channel. But here's a little bit more about Pluto. Pluto is called a higher octave of Mars because Mars often opens the door for Pluto, but it cannot do Pluto's deep transformative work. Mars is merely the aggressive force starting a fight. Pluto is the atom bomb ending it. So that's the kind of force, that's the kind of power that Pluto is seen to have in astrology. A little bit more here. Pluto represents in astrology the destruction of old foundations so that you can replace those foundations with new ones. And that was said by a lead analyst of Inner Worlds Astrology. So we get this kind of idea about Pluto and astrology, that it's the planet of transformation through destruction, represents regeneration after old things have been destroyed. It also brings past tensions back to the surface, and it's quite peculiar given this kind of description of Pluto in astrology, that it's got that kind of force, that we're seeing these kinds of headlines now in the mainstream media. WW3 is being talked about as a real possibility at the moment. All of these headlines being released just before Pluto hit that 0 degree line. NATO has kicked off its largest military exercise since the Cold War. Very concerning. We're also getting this talked about in the mainstream media now. This kind of option is on the table, it would seem. But let's keep a little tally here. As Pluto hit that 0 degree line, we are seeing in mainstream media headlines WW3. Also talked about at the moment, and including in one of these headlines, is this word, bioweapons. Billy Boy Goats has been talking about that for quite some time. He's calling it bioterrorism. You can trace him back to at least 2017, talking about this kind of thing. This headline is from, well, just the day before Pluto hit the 0 degree line, so very concerning. On the same day, we get this in mainstream media as well. The UK counter-terror chief warns of unprecedented rise in terrorism. That was on the day that Pluto hit the 0 degree line. I'm sure we all remember this smirk from the then Mr. and Mrs. Goats. And we all remember what he said then. He said, we must prepare for the next pandemic, and it will get attention this time. And then came this smirk. We also get the bunch of cronies up in Davos, the Davos Mountains there. They're all chiming in with this idea of this new virus, Disease X, as are Johns Hopkins, as is Billy Boy Goats. And they're all talking about this Disease X now. And this is quite interesting astrologically, because Pluto sitting on that 0 degree line, originally Pluto was called Planet X. Just before it was discovered, they didn't have a name for it. They called it Planet X before they called it Pluto. So I thought that was quite interesting astrologically. But all of these entities talking about Disease X, Billy Boy Goats, the WEF, and Johns Hopkins, they are, of course, all of the participants in this infamous event back in October 2019. I'm sure it's all just a big coincidence. But just as we saw Saturn and Jupiter in the Great Mutation back in December 2020, We're seeing Pluto on that 0 degree line, and a real echo of 2020 now, when we had the big C back in 2020 when the great mutation happened, and now Pluto is on that same degree. We're getting an echo of that 2020 time frame with this new supposed on its way pandemic, Disease X. So we're going to add that to the tally as well. We've got bioterror and a new pandemic being talked about just as Pluto hits that 0 degree line. We also saw this. It is 90 seconds to midnight, according to the Doomsday Clock. 90 seconds to Doomsday, they would like us to think. CNN, mainstream media, got absolutely giddy about this, telling us how close we are to annihilation. In fact, all of the mainstream media kind of loved the fact that we are closer to destruction than we've ever been, closer to global catastrophe, and it's 90 seconds to midnight. It was first set to 90 seconds to midnight back in January 2023, and it's just stayed at 90 seconds this year. But back in 2023, Pluto was only 2 degrees away from that 0 degree line. So, in fact, as we take a look at the history of the Doomsday Clock, we can see that as Pluto has been approaching that 0 degree line, and we could go back to 2018, 2019 here, it was moved 2 minutes to midnight back then, which was the closest back then. Then in 2020 it went to 100 seconds, and now the 2023-24 closer than ever to catastrophe period is just when Pluto is hitting that 0 degree line. So we'll add that to the little tally here. Doomsday is being talked about quite openly. I also said this back in part 9. I was keeping my eye on this situation. Almost everything is ready for the third temple, apart from the existence of another holy building on the same site that they want to build it. We've got the holy cows are ready. They really want to build this temple there, but the tensions are ongoing, and it's causing a bit of a problem. We could see all the way through last year, in fact, that third temple preparations were in full swing. When I saw this headline, I started to get a little bit concerned. Started to think, well, here it comes. They're about to go ahead, but it's still there, still standing. This other existing holy building on that site of the potential third temple. They've got the holy cow ready in the wings. That was born last year, according to mainstream media, and they really need to build this. They called for the construction of it to be fulfilled prior to or in tandem with this messianic age, which is what they're talking about. A little bit more on that. I found this in Moshiach.news. There's this phrase here, Tekayas Hamashim. I've probably murdered the pronunciation of that, but it translates to resurrection of the dead. And this is supposed to happen by the Jewish year 5790. It seems to be quite an existing concept, a religious concept. Tekayas Hamashim, many sources talking about it. It will be here soon. It needs to happen by the Jewish year 5790. And it is quite interesting that this resurrection of the dead happening by the Jewish year 5790, that coincides with the year 2030 in the Gregorian calendar, which is not too far away. 7 years from the writing of this article on Moshiach.news, Moshiach meaning Messiah, of course. Coinciding with 2030, a little bit more about it here. We get an actual date, September 28th, 2030. Pause this, have a read of this if you want. Look up the article. It is quite interesting and bizarre, but this is the interesting bit for me. The Messianic era must happen in advance of this religious concept. So Messiah needs to return, or a Messiah. Some kind of Messiah needs to return before this resurrection of the dead happens. But it is quite interesting that it coincides with 2030, because we also have Agenda 2030 on the cards. And the resurrection of the dead, that has an interesting correlation in the occult with this tarot card, the Judgment card. And what we see here is another resurrection of the dead. All these people are coming out of their coffins as the angel blows the trumpet. Very, very peculiar. And this card is ruled by Pluto, no less. And we get another aspect of Pluto here: life, death, and rebirth. Also on this card, this tarot card, we find that it's the 20th card, so it's symbolized with the double X there, representing the number 20. That is nicely looking like the seal of Saturn, and Pluto is on that Saturn degree line in between Capricorn and Aquarius. Very, very interesting. I also found this, Astrology in That Religious Community's Thought. It's a book. You can actually get this free online. And what they do in this book is they correlate all of the astrological months to the months in that religious community's own calendar. These are the two that we are interested in. Let's have a look at those. Let's start with Tevet, which is meant to symbolize Capricorn, the goat. It says in this book about this month that the nation associated with the sign of Capricorn is the Philistine nation. What is the Philistine nation? Well, it was known as Philistia. Let's have a bit more of a look at it here. What is Philistia called today? The area contained the 5 cities, the Pentapolis of the Philistine Confederacy. We can see Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, Ekron, land of the Philistines, and it was later called Palestine by the Greeks. There it is. And let's have a look at the next month here, Shavat, which correlates to Aquarius. They call the sort of the water bearer the bucket. The word for that is Dali, and it's the sign of that state out there because its sole purpose is to draw water, and water is a symbol for their holy book. So that's very, very interesting. We also get another source for it here. Tevet and Shavat, same thing. Capricorn is the Philistine nation. Aquarius is that religious community. So these sources, it's very peculiar when you look at the as above, so below here. We've got Pluto, which brings past tensions back to the surface. It's probably resurfaced more than it ever has done in the last few decades of all of that conflict out there. But it's certainly resurfacing on a massive scale now. And it's sitting in between these two sides, Capricorn and Aquarius, which, given that book, is Tevet and Shavat. And they correlate, given that book's own quotation, to Palestine and that state. And what else do we see about Pluto? It's the planet of transformation and destruction. Well, we're seeing a lot of that area looking a lot like this these days, certainly being transformed, destroyed. And if we take a look at the other quote, Pluto represents in astrology the destruction of old foundations, replacing those with new foundations. So very, very curious correlation here. It's obviously just as above, so below, isn't it? Or is it something else? Destruction, regeneration being displayed perfectly here, I think. And speaking of resurrections, we have this year, the US presidential election. By the time Pluto gets back to the 0 degree line for the third and final time, we will know who has been elected. But people are calling it the most important US presidential election in history. And will it be Creepy Joe, Genocide Joe, or will it be Zion Don? We just don't know. But we're being told to brace for an election like no other. And The Economist are warning us that DT, Donald Trump, he poses the biggest danger to the world in 2024. And we can see that kind of profile eclipse on the Earth of Donald Trump there, his profile eclipsing the Earth. This is hugely significant, I think, and I'll be looking into this a lot more. Also, The Economist said that, well, he asked the question, did God choose Trump? A surprising number of Christians believe so. Many Trump supporters believe God has chosen him to rule. And strangely, we're seeing a lot of images like this. I'll be going into a lot more of this, actually. It's very bizarro. But he's being anointed, it would seem. He's being, I don't know, turned into a saintly figure in some way. 60 Minutes just did this little documentary about him, The Resurrection of Donald Trump. Very, very bizarro. He seems to think we're on the brink of World War III. But by November the 19th this year, when Pluto is back on that 0 degree line, we will know who has been selected. We must not forget this as well. Back in February 2020, we saw that coins had been minted with this phrase on it, the Army of Light against the Army of Darkness. That was back when Trump was still president. And these coins were minted with Benny, Benjamin Netanyahu, Benny Boy, and Trumpety Trump on these coins with this phrase, War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness. And now, or at least towards the end of last year, very recently, we're seeing the same phrase repeated from that period. Very, very curious that this rhetoric should have this kind of timeline, given what's happening now. And all very interesting. We also saw this from Benny. He has declared that what's going on out there is a second war of independence. War of Independence reminds me of another war of independence, the American Revolutionary War. And these two things happened, well, one's happening, one did happen, at the exact time that Pluto is transiting that 0 degree line. And of course, these countries are intertwined through AIPAC, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee. I went into that in part 9 and saw how this area of the Synchronicle model is being activated now. We also saw this, Netanyahu invoking scripture, calling it a holy war. This is what he said. He cited Amalek, and he talked about this figure Amalek from their holy book. You must remember what Amalek has done to you. Now go and smite Amalek and utterly destroy all that they have. They certainly seem to be doing that, fulfilling biblical prophecy, perhaps. So we'll add that to the tally here. Everything's getting a little bit biblical. We also saw this. This was bizarro. They even said it was bizarro in the news. These tunnels that were found underneath New York. And this phrase is there again, that they are for Messiah. All very, very interesting. And it was even more bizarro when you consider that Pluto is the Roman god of the underworld, and there they are in their tunnels, all quite synchronistic. Is it as above, so below? Well, you tell me. I also saw this. This is a little bit of a personal note here. I went for a walk around the anniversary of the Great Mutation of December the 21st, 2020. Went for a walk in a park round about the anniversary of that date, and I saw this bizarro looking kids climbing frame. So let's have a closer look at that. On this climbing frame you can see this. Let's blow that up. It's a lovely Saturn there, and I don't know what that's doing on there, but not only do we have Saturn, we also have Jupiter. You can see it's Jupiter there with the little red spot. So we've got on this pyramid shaped climbing frame within this hexagon the Saturn Jupiter conjunction of the Great Mutation of December 21st, 2020. Bizarro stuff. Wasn't sure when this was built. Doesn't have a date on it. Maybe it was built then. Who knows? But the other curious thing here is the capstone of this pyramid has the planet Earth on it. You can see the grey bits of the countries of the world there. We've got Europe and Africa and the Americas showing. But why would you have the Earth as the capstone, and then the first planet away from the Earth is Saturn, and then Jupiter? All very bizarro to me. Couldn't work this out. But yeah, that was a personal little thing that I saw. Thought I'd share that with you. And then there was this, which happened kind of pretty much on the day that Pluto hit that 0 degree line. We had this new story, Japan landing on the moon. What have we got in this story? We've got Japan and the moon. Let's start with Japan. We'll take a look at Japan's national flag. It is known as the flag of the sun, the ball of the sun. Japan is known as the land of the rising sun. So in this new story, we've got Japan being represented by the sun, and we've got the moon. So we've got the sun and moon there combined in this story, and of course that would make the sun and moon combination of the divine androgyne, and that is the Saturn line on the Synchronicle model. So that story was perfectly timed to happen then. The sun and moon combined in one story happening there, where they landed their probe on the date that Pluto hit that 0 degree line. I just thought that was a lovely bit of synchro mysticism. Okay, another thing. A subscriber, well, I hope they are a subscriber, Hens93, left me a little comment saying, check out this cryptocurrency company and their logo, and that they've already started talking about carbon credits. So I did have a look at this, and thanks to Hens93 for commenting this. But I had a look at Quant, and they consider themselves the foundation of the blockchain economy. Lovely 6-pointed with a hexagon in the middle there. Absolutely perfect. In fact, over at Quant, they love their Saturn symbolism. Got a bunch of cubes and sort of bizarro looking 6-pointed hexagon kind of thing. And I also found this as well. I had this in the wings already. Binance, which is another cryptocurrency exchange kind of thing. They've got lovely cubes. Not only are they cubes, they've also got Saturn seal in there, and they've got this lovely yellow and black feel, giving it that real sort of Saturn feel to these Binance cubes. So I'm definitely going to put these in the model. I'm going to put Quant, and thanks to Hens93 again for that. I'm going to put that underneath the Bank of England's digital pound Saturn, which was that was also great as well. And I'm going to put the Binance cubes on my Saturn paraphernalia collection, all looking very nice indeed. And let's just do a bit of a recap. We got Saturn on that, Pluto on that 0 degree line. That got there on January the 21st this year, and we've got this litany of things that are meant to happen this year, or at least being talked about as happening in the near future. All very concerning. And we've got this new moon happening just at the moment, actually, over the next couple of days. And that's going to transit the 0 degree line conjunct with Pluto. That will happen over the next few days till around about a 10th. So I thought that was nice, a nice thing astrologically. We've also got a Venus and Mars conjunction with Pluto as well. That will happen around about the 17th, the height of it there. Thought that was a nice bit of astrology as well. And on February the 22nd, it will get to 1 degree Pluto of Aquarius. April 11th, round about 2 degrees. Well, it'll be at 2 degrees on the 11th. And then on the 21st, we've got this conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus happening. And then it is joined by the Sun in the middle of May. So this could be an important alignment if astrology has any weight to it. We'll have to keep our eye on that. Uranus being the planet of short, sharp shock. So something could occur. It is also the modern ruler of Aquarius. Then on the 3rd of May, it will go retrograde. And round about that time, we're expected to have the UK general election. But the worrying thing about this little print screen that I took is it's not even scheduled yet. But I don't suppose it matters, because nothing will happen, nothing will change. The Tories are in at the moment, and nobody is running the Labour Party. And by nobody, I mean Keir Starmer. Also, through this year, 2024, we've got 7 of the world's 10 most populous nations, and all of those nations there are having some kind of election. So, a huge year. Pluto doing its transformative work. And we've also got this. The World Health Organization calling for their World Pandemic Treaty. They need to do that by May. They need to reach an agreement by May. All talking about this disease X again. Then on July 19th this year, it will reach the 0 degree line again. It'll go back to 29 degrees of Capricorn, still going retrograde by September the 2nd. And then October the 12th, it will go direct. And then November the 19th this year, it will be back on that 0 degree line for the third and final time. And by then, we'll know which one of these contenders will have landed the job. We are also hearing some kind of murmurs of an outsider replacing Creepy Joe. Big Mike, as she is known, or they are known. Did I get the pronouns right? Not sure. But we shall find out in due course. It may not happen, though. There may be some kind of cyber issue that they've been warning about for a good while now. And they've been reiterating that very, very recently. Iran committing all kinds of cyber security, cyber attacks, and tensions escalating between the West and this country as well. Very, very concerning. So this year, perhaps the biggest aspect of this year is Pluto on the 0 degree line, about to go into Aquarius for the next, good 20 years or so. Pluto being planet of transformation, destruction, regeneration, past tensions, resurfacing, life, death, rebirth. We shall have to see if we get any real as above, so below correlations. It's 303 days, which is quite peculiar. Thought that was quite significant to include. All right, well, let's get a little bit more serious. I really need your help at the moment. I need you to subscribe if you've got this far, and I really need you to like these videos. I never ask anybody to do this. In the whole almost 18 years I've been uploading to this channel, I've never asked anyone to do this once in a video. I need you to start doing this for me now. I really need your help. I could also really do with financial support at the moment. I know it's tight out there. I know people having to dig deep for their own sustenance and their own survival. But if you can subscribe to me on Patreon and Subscribestar, links will be below. I really need your help. I would really appreciate it. The more you can help me, the more I can produce content. I really do intend to expand this channel, look at various other things, different kinds of videos. If you have any kind of area that you would like me to look at, please do include that in the comments. But that's it for now. I will see you in part 11.